Ah, the Olympic Games. They date all the way back to ancient Greece and have provided us with some of the most iconic moments in the history of sport. It's seen by many as the pinnacle of international sporting competition. However, I'm not one of those who see it that way. At least not for football. Sure, the Olympics might be a good time to be a fan of water polo or whatever the fuck this is. However, for see how do I put this? Real sports, it's not really the same. I don't want to sound too cynical or negative. However, this summer give us Lionel Messi versus James Rodriguez in the Copa America final. It gave us Lamine Yamal versus Jude Bellingham in the final of the Euros on the same day. After that footballing high that transpired earlier this summer, it's hard to be satisfied with Uzbekistan's under 23s versus the Dominican Republic's under 23s, with all due respect to both nations. It begs a very genuine question, though. Why is Olympic football so random? First of all, I can't really sit here and blanket statement Olympic football as a whole. It's more Olympic men's football that I'm talking about. The women's game is seen as incredibly prestigious within women's football. If it weren't, Canada wouldn't have bothered spying on New Zealand and getting their entire coaching staff banned. Women's football is certainly growing at a rapid rate, and this is truly incredible to witness for any fan of the sport. However, because women's football is behind men's football in popularity, it's easy to understand why a renowned global stage such as the Olympics would be such a good platform to promote the growth of the game. The magic of the Olympics is that there's an absolute festival of sport, and with this, there will be eyes on some sports that may have not been there before. I've personally been hooked on skateboarding recently. Absolutely incredible stuff. When this many events are going on simultaneously, it's bound to attract some new viewers. Because the women's game is always looking for ways to develop, having the best players and the best teams light up the competition is a perfect way to achieve the growth and development that the women's game so rightly deserves. However, for the men's game, it looks a little different. Because the men's game has plenty of eyes on it already, they have a luxury of being more selective in how they conduct their football in the Olympics. Unlike the women's game, the men's team send their under 23 teams, with a handful of overage players. The main reason is that men's Olympic football looks so different is perhaps a difference in numbers that both domestic and international football attracts in the men's game. 3.05 billion people watch the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. That's every match of every event combined. Compare that to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, and the number is 5 billion. When more people are watching one men's football tournament than the entire Olympic Games, it shows that football is a big enough sport to single-handedly transcend the popularity of the Olympics. When competitions such as the World Cup, the Euros, the Copa America, and even domestic competitions such as the Champions League, which is the most watched annual sporting competition in the world, you can get why the prestige of the Olympics is lost a bit. Are the Lamine Yamals and Jude Bellinghams of the world really going to want to risk getting injured with their La Liga and Champions League campaigns just to play in the Olympics? Well, no, is the answer, because they saw what Pedri did 3 years ago, and that didn't end too well for him. When you take these things into consideration, it makes perfect sense why the men's teams field under 23 teams, and they give developing and up-and-coming players a chance to shine. I guess the short answer is, there are so many other competitions in the men's game that are so popular and prestigious, it's hard for the Olympics to compete. Another reason is more of a political one, you could say. The last time that Team GB, Team Great Britain, fielded a men's football team at the Olympics was in 2012, when London was a host city. Before that, they didn't have one until 1960. As we know, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland all have separate national teams. When they're represented by the same team in the Olympics, there's a number of issues that come with this. Perhaps the biggest one is pressure from separate FAs. Each FA wants to operate independently. If they unite to form Team GB side for the Olympics, then they fear this dripping down and potentially impacting the independent sporting integrity of their respective nations on an international level. Also, representation seems to be a concern for smaller Team GB nations. I mean, if I were Harry Kane and I knew I would be warming the bench for Lawrence Shankland the entire tournament, I'd also want nothing to do with it. What makes it a real shame is that England won the Under-23 European Championship back in 2023 after they defeated Spain in the final, but because Team GB doesn't field an Olympic team, we're limited to a tournament without one of the best sides. That would be like having a World Cup without Italy. Never mind, that doesn't work at all. Bad analogy. Speaking of Team GB, they can be attributed as one of the key reasons why Olympic football doesn't really have the shine that other competitions do. Britain is the birthplace of football, and likely the global football capital of the world. Not having a British team in a major international competition leaves us with a cultural void of the game we adore. I mean, what's the point of even watching the Euros if you can't just make fun of Gareth Southgate the entire time? I won't say that topic of the men's Team GB for too long, because the men's national team not taking Olympic football seriously really isn't anything to write home about. However, Team GB have a similar approach to the women's team. Team GB has only sent a women's team on two occasions, the 2012 Olympics, which are hosted in London, as we know, and the 2020 Olympics. The 2012 squad consisted of only English players, and the 2020 squad consisted of players from England, Scotland, and Wales. Because the British FAs aren't able to agree on a unified team, they decided in recent years that whichever national team was highest ranked would send their national team to represent all of Team GB. However, FIFA didn't really want this happening. They said that all 4 home nations must agree, or they simply can't send a team. This is the reason there was no Team G women's team in the 2016 Olympics. However, as mentioned, they were able to reach an agreement for the 2020 version of the Games. The reason there's no Team GB women's side of the 2024 Olympics isn't actually the fault of the home nations FAs, for once. The women's tournament of the 2024 Olympics consists of just 12 teams. 12. In the entire tournament. The reason Team GB aren't one of them is because they aren't one of the 2 teams that qualified from Europe. That's right, 2 teams from all of Europe. Keep in mind, England are the defending champions of the Euros in the women's game. Not having them is like having a World Cup without Italy. Nope, still a terrible analogy. Doesn't work. This brings my next point, though. The qualifying for Olympic football is very whack, for lack of a better word. The qualifying for the men's and women's tournaments is similar. The only difference is the men's tournament have 4 more teams and uses under 23 teams. Besides that, they each have an equal number of initial spots from every confederation. Having representation from more confederations isn't a bad concept. In fact, I think it's good. Football is the world's game. The spirit of the Olympics is to have a truly global competition. Having teams from every confederation, it makes perfect sense. It's a lot more inclusive than World Cup qualifying, where a team from Oceania can't even qualify automatically. Here's what I'm going to contradict everything I just said. The World Cup has 32 teams. Surely they could afford to give one automatic berth to Oceania. However, the Olympics have just 12 or 16 teams. Surely they could afford to give more than 2 spots to Europe. In the World Cup, the higher performing confederations get more spots. In the Olympics, it's all even. But because the World Cup is only triple the amount of teams as the Olympics, it seems like they're using systems of qualification that would be better suited for each other. The whole thing seems a bit backward. And it's not like the Olympics are short on teams either. 204 nations are represented at the 2024 Olympics. 211 nations have men's national teams, and 129 nations have women's national teams. Which, I'm not going to lie, that does seem a little disproportionate. I was a bit shocked to learn that, but that's a story for another day. The point is, the Olympic Games and international football both share one striking similarity. They are both pure and festive global celebrations that are expressed through sport. I know it sounds pretentious, but it's true. It's a shame that we're robbed of high-end international football competition taking another form in the Olympic Games for reasons such as a lack of interest from FAs, or other competitions taking priority, and weird qualifying rules holding back the entire competition as a whole. But unfortunately, that seems to be the case as to why Olympic football isn't taken seriously, and just comes off as incredibly random. It could even be something minor, like the fact that the Olympics take place weeks after the Euros and Copa America. But being real, I can't see either competition willing to budge for the other, for something no one really cares about too much to begin with. My solution: watch skateboarding. It's better than watching Argentina have a goal disallowed 2 hours after the game ends, or whatever other shitfest is going on with the excuse that it's football at the Olympics. I mean, we all should have been suspicious about anything in which Alexander Lacazette is a captain for in 2024. Thanks for watching this far. I appreciate it. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what you think the main reason behind Olympic football being so underwhelming is. I'm off to watch my guy Keegan Palmer tear up some half pipes while bopping Avril Lavigne.